walk by faith and not by sight. Kevin McCullough saying good morning to you. Glad you're with us here on the Kevin McCullough Show. And glad to be here every single morning with you, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And for those of you that catch this broadcast at other times, on the American Family Radio Network or maybe in the overnight hours, we're grateful for you being here as well. Just a big reminder, we are now 2 days away. This coming Wednesday will be the announcement that I have been pushing towards for the last little over 2 months. And we are hopeful and prayerful that you will be with us on that day for the announcement that we've been telling you about. And I want you to DVR the show. I want you to gather your friends. I want you to be nearby as we talk to you heart to heart about the biggest move that has happened to this broadcast in the history of it being on the air, starting out as a radio venture many, many years ago as a local show in New York, and now nationally syndicated on multiple television outlets and radio stations across the country. So we're grateful for everything that you've been thus far. We want you to be able to continue the journey with us, and in order to do that, we want you to be tuned in August 31st to understand what's happening and how you can be a part of the future of this broadcast. We've got a lot to get to on today's show. We're going to get to that. Practical dilemma, the news of the day. But we need to start with the first thing that we talk about on every Calvin McCullough show, and that is the concept of God. Who God is, what He's about, why He's important, what difference He makes in this world, in this life, and at this time. And that's what we talk about first on every KMC show. God, life, news. God, because He's the source and origin of truth. Life, because it's a gift that He gives us, and it is cherished, and we value it, and we pass it on to one another. And news, because it's just the aggregate of our lives being lived together. So that's where we're at. That's what we do every day, and that's what we're going to talk about on today's broadcast as well. For the God Thought, which you can join on Facebook by going to thebingethinker.com and clicking on the God Thought at the top of the page, where it says God Thought. You just click that, poke on through, and you can get to the Facebook page, join the group. Today, and all this year, we have been studying through Ray Pritchard's book, He's God and We're Not. Good title of a book to talk about on the God Thought, don't you think? And in the process of doing so, we are excited that we have been able to nearly complete a full study of the first 5 spiritual laws of 7 that Ray Pritchard discusses in He's God and We're Not. Now, we started this journey in January in the chapter that was titled the same as the book. But the first 3 laws, just to review very quickly, He's God and We're Not. God doesn't need us, but we desperately need Him. And number 3, God supplies what He demands. Any of those truths not true, then He wouldn't be God. The 4th spiritual law has to do with us, where Ray Pritchard says, what you seek, you find. So if you seek death and destruction, you'll find it. If you seek to know the God of truth, you can and you will, if you are diligent to seek Him. He is faithful to reward. So we've got some interesting paths behind us already that we've discussed, but the 5th spiritual law, the one that we've been in for the last, I don't know, month and a half, is that active faith releases God's power. Now, on Wednesday the 31st, I'm going to go ballywonkus on this point, because it'll be our final day in the current God Thought 5th spiritual law that we're dealing with. And I've got a lot to say about the timing of how this chapter coincided with our announcement for Wednesday and everything else. But I want you to know, from the individual level of every person that works on this show, there has been a personal testimony of seeing exactly what Ray is writing about in this chapter that we randomly selected back in December to be the God Thought as we started it in January, that we just randomly would be ending up at this place at this time with this announcement coming on Wednesday. It's just random, coincidence. But what we've been looking at is that active faith releases God's power. And in the process of studying this concept of what active faith is, we've gone through about, 4 dozen definitions of what faith is. And it's been good. It's been really good. So, and if you've missed any of it, you can get old ones online at the Facebook page, thebingethinker.com. Click God Thought at the top, take you through to the Facebook page. We've got the whole series, I think, archived via video, at least the last number of months anyway. So, just a personal looking forward. Wednesday's edition, our last thought, God thought, in the 5th spiritual law, active faith releases God's power. We want you to be here to understand what that is about. And it'll be an interesting day. Let's just put it that way. All right, so today, Ray is continuing his summary of the chapter that he's been in. And he says very plain and simply that this is how God leads his children. Always one step at a time. As we walk into the light we have, the light moves forward, and we can see the next step to take. Let me read that one more time. This is how God leads his children. Always one step at a time, and as we walk into the light we have, the light moves forward, and we can see the next step to take. Light's an interesting thing, don't you think? It's a little LED that my father-in-law gave me a while back. It's for my keychain, and I can actually use it to, unlock the door. I'm at the door late at night, and I need to find the right key, and I can, oh, there's the right key. Just like that. But if it was pitch dark in here, and I don't know exactly how pitch dark we can get it. Carrie, come in here and turn off the studio lights. Leave the spot on, but turn off the studio lights for a second. Because I want to try to illustrate what Ray's talking about for a second. Now, we'll have some light coming through the window, and we'll have the monitor on, of course. But is she coming? All right, flip that switch. We're turning off the studio lights, and this is the darker side of what it looks like in here in the morning. But if I have this light, and I put it in front of me, if this room was completely dark, I could very easily see at least enough light to be able to take that next step. You see how it hits my hand? Now, I may not be able to see way over there on that side of the room, but I can see what's right here in front of me. And Ray is saying, and look at the words in this again, this is how God leads his children, always one step at a time. As we walk into the light we have, the light moves, no, don't turn them on, come in, shut the door. Hear the fans. The light moves forward, and we can see the next step to take. So that's kind of like the rule of thumb for this LED light. It's enough to see my keys to get them into the door at night if it's late at night and I'm trying to get into the house without waking up the whole neighborhood. I can use this to just take that next step. And if I was lost in the woods, I would be able to not see everywhere that I wanted to go. I would be able to see just enough to take the next step. And that's what Ray is pointing out here. Always one step at a time. As we walk into the light that we have, what happens if I'm holding this light? This is the light that I have. I move forward. Oh, guess what? I've still got enough light over here to keep taking steps. As we walk into the light that we have, the light moves forward, and we can see the next step to take. Okay, hit the lights again. We can turn them back on. But I wanted to try to illustrate that in as practical a way as possible, because while that's a very real explanation that makes sense in the physical realm, the spiritual truth of what Ray is saying is equally true. Friends, you may be in a period of darkness that is uncomfortable, but you have enough light for that next step. If the light of God's truth is something that you are intimately familiar with, if it is with you, and if you are clothing yourself in it on a daily basis, when you take that step, the light's going to move with you. And you will see enough for the next step. faith and entering into that relationship of faith with God is almost always like this. It's very seldom that God goes, here, I'm going to show you the entire path, and you'll see every bit of it totally clear from start to finish, and you'll never be surprised by anything that's coming down. If that was what he did for us, it would not require faith on our part to enter into it. We would be guaranteed without effort on our part of the end result. What God is asking of us is trust. What he's asking of us is belief. What he's asking of us is dependency upon him that is greater than the dependency of our own eyes. And why does he ask us of that? Because in our human, flawed nature, we believe that what we see with our eyes is the most reliable thing we can obtain. And God is proving the point that he's more reliable than what we see. The world says seeing is believing. God says believing is seeing. And he's calling us, he's pulling us, he's drawing us into a relationship with him that will allow us to see things that go far beyond what we can physically. Kevin McCullough, stay with us. It's going to be a fun week. The Binge Thinker, God Thought, top of the page. Right back.